But simply telling you to feed your family less ultra-processed foods is simply not enough. You need to know what to put on the plate instead, how to make it work when you're tired, short on time, and how to create a healthier environment without turning your child's health into another full-time job or one more place of conflict. I actually started thinking about this after reading this New York Times article about Bryce Martinez. He actually developed type 2 diabetes and fatty liver disease as a teenager, and he is now suing 11 major food manufacturers. His lawsuit alleges that the products that these companies made contributed to his disease. These products that are marketed solely to children, they actually created to keep children wanting more and more. And this article is really important because it does focus on holding the food industry accountable, which I absolutely believe is important. But you know what? We cannot wait for these lawsuits to work its way through the courts while we're trying to care for our families today. And I don't want you to walk away from this conversation thinking that you simply need to eliminate ultra processed foods. I hear this again and again and again. Families are told to eliminate ultra processed foods, leave out the McDonald's, skip the chips. But what are you supposed to do instead? And that's actually even more important than what you eliminate. So, what I want to talk to you today about is not only food, because food does matter, but it's not the only thing that is affecting your child's metabolic health. Sleep matters, stress matters, technology matters, time outside and movement also matter. And you deserve to understand how all of these pieces fit together and where you still have the power to change them. So in this video, I'm going to explain why metabolic disease in children is a five-alarm fire. And I want to give you five realistic places to begin. I'm At the end, I'm actually going to tell you where to start so that it doesn't become another list of things that you're just, overwhelmed with, because truthfully, there's information everywhere. And I know that. But I want you to understand and feel like you're back in control. I'm Dr. Jen. I help adults and children reverse metabolic disease with what I like to call joyful medicine. It's evidence-based lifestyle medicine that is joy first, weight inclusive, and honors your culture, your life, and your lived experience. So before we talk about what to do, I want you to understand why this is so important. So when a child develops type 2 diabetes, fatty liver disease, or high blood pressure, we're not just talking about one abnormal lab on a report. It's actually has implications for their whole life. This is something that may follow them for decades. We're talking about medication, medical appointments, and increased risk for heart disease, kidney disease, and liver complications much earlier in life. And it's not to say that these complications are inevitable. It just means that they deserve more than just reassurance or just saying eliminate ultra processed foods and saying that maybe the child will grow out of it. It's really the goal is to also not make it a fight or a focus of losing weight or eliminating certain foods. It's serious, but it's not powerless, and it doesn't mean robbing a child of their childhood. So let's start with what you can do. So the first place I like to start is talk about food, because food is something we do over and over again. And truthfully, it's one of the most powerful things that we can do to change the course of disease and even prevent disease. But the way I like to look at it is building a foundation. I don't like to focus on a list of things you can't do, because it's even more important to do the things that are going to make a difference, that are going to help support the body in healing. The goal is not to throw everything out in your kitchen, but it really is to start thinking about what your family already eats and what you can add to these meals to make them more nourishing and satisfying. So the foundational foods that I talk about all the time are fruits and vegetables, whole grains, beans and legumes, nuts and seeds, and abundance of herbs and spices, because those are healing too. So instead of focusing on, yes, switching everything over all at once, just start to look at where you can add these things into meals. So beans, really powerful. Can you add them to soups? Maybe you can add them to a taco instead of the meat or part of the meat, maybe to rice and pasta. Can you add fruit at breakfast time? Can you add some frozen vegetables to something that you're already making? Maybe you can sprinkle nuts and seeds on oatmeal or keep peanut butter available as a snack. So these things are the key to focus on. Fruits and vegetables, whole grains, beans and lentils, nuts and seeds, because it's not a rigid plant-based formula or anything like that. But these foods are nutrient dense, they're healing, they lower inflammation in the body, they support gut health, they support glycemic index. So they help lower or blunt the blood sugar response in the body. And the truth is, most Americans are not getting enough of these foods. So that's the key. Not getting enough of the healing foods. So this is why I like to focus on abundance and adding more of these healing foods in. And another important point is it doesn't have to be expensive. These foods can be the least expensive part of your shopping list, your grocery list. Canned beans are just as good as dried beans. Frozen vegetables are just as good as fresh vegetables. Frozen fruit also counts. Oatmeal, potatoes, rice, peanut butter, all of these low-cost foods can form a foundation that starts to reverse disease and supports healing. The other thing is you don't have to make everything from scratch. You can lean on, again, the canned beans. You can look at pasta. You don't have to use whole wheat pasta, just regular pasta, but think about adding these things in so that it rounds out the meal. Look at all of those foods I mentioned, the fruits and vegetables, the whole grains, the beans and legumes, nuts and seeds, and start to build meals around those things. So that's another big thing is the plant slant. So instead of looking at, meat and then the sides, look at maybe the sides as the mains and the meat as the side. And that right there can be a big change. So taking the place of some of the meat with beans, because those beans really have a huge positive effect. So instead of asking, what do you need to take away? Think about what can I add, starting with abundance. The next one is look around your kitchen because your environment makes the decision before anybody thinks about it. So when your child is hungry or you're hungry for that matter, and you're looking for a snack, what is the first thing that you see? So you want to make sure that that first thing that's in reach is something that is nourishing and healing, something that is low prep, right? So having some of those things around that are easy to grab, but are nourishing. Because the thing is, you don't want to make every choice a fight or every choice require a lot of brain work. If you can take away some of the difficulty and friction, you're gonna more likely to do it, right? So you want to make it easier. I like to say make the healthy choice the easy choice. And that's really key. So if it's visible, then you're more likely to do it. So can you put fruit, on the counter? And again, it doesn't have to be expensive. I look at what's in season, what's on sale, a bag of apples, a bag of clementines. Kids love clementines, watermelon, other melon, cut up and front and center in the refrigerator, fruit in a basket on the counter. So the first thing you see when you walk into the kitchen is that, and that really makes the biggest difference. Keeping beans, canned beans and frozen vegetables available. I always have that stocked in my freezer. I have lots of berries and other frozen fruit there too. So then there's always something that you can pull from and put together so that even if you're not planned, you have something that can quickly be put together. Think about 2 or 3 meals that you can put together quickly that you can prep without, like rice and beans as a staple in my household, because you can have that on the table in 20 minutes. Add some frozen veggies with it, maybe add some salad, add some salsa, and you have a nourishing quick meal ready quickly. You can throw it in a tortilla, and then you have a burrito. Great way. A rice and bean bowl. Those are all great, easy things. Maybe pasta with some lentils and red sauce and frozen veggies, another quick thing. So the goal is not to depend on willpower or discipline. The goal is really to remove the friction and make it an easy choice. So you can change all of the food in your kitchen and still miss 3 major influences on your child metabolic health. So let's talk about those. The first one is sleep. So think of how bedtime feels at home. Is it like a rush to get to bed? Is everybody running around and then quickly lights off and people are tossing and turning? So think about how you can start to set up that bedtime environment. Are you taking phones and tablets into the bedroom? It's another cause of disrupted sleep because truthfully, sleep affects everything. It affects hunger signals, it affects our mood, it affects our energy, it affects our stress, and it affects insulin sensitivity. Sleep deprivation directly interferes with how our body processes glucose and insulin. So when children haven't slept well, that's contributing to the problem. It also makes food choices harder. You're going to have more cravings. It's going to be You're going to be more irritable the next day. You're going to have low energy the next day. So those things, decisions are going to be that much harder. So having a bedtime routine is such an important thing. I talk to adults about this all the time. You have to think about it. When your child was a toddler, did you have give them the warm bath and you turn down the lights and you read a nice book? We do that for toddlers because we recognize how important sleep is. But sleep is important throughout our life. So we need to think about toddler to treat ourselves like toddlers, treat our children like toddlers when we look about the bedtime. So they think about having some technology free time before bed so that we can wind down because that technology is a constant stress. That stimulation is going to affect the ability to wind down and sleep well. So I like to look at it as technology should be outside of the bedroom. Sometimes it's even better to have technology free time when you come in the house. I used to do that when my kids were younger. So then that way we are modeling that technology control for our children. I understand a lot of schoolwork and things like that are done on the computer now, but think about where you can start to put some natural boundaries in. Definitely, protecting that hour or so before bedtime is a really good place to start. Um, Maybe making the lights dimmer at night. That's another great way to kind of set your body up so that it knows that it's time for bed. So making a consistent bedtime routine is also important for everybody. So going to sleep at the same time. So the goal is not to control everything, but to slowly just kind of look at those things that you can change to improve that bedtime and the quality of the sleep. The next one is movement. So often when we talk about movement, we think about the gym. We think, oh, we have to go to the gym, or maybe we have to join an activity or a sport, some kind of formal recreation, and another activity to try to fit in a really busy schedule. And I understand that. But you know what? It doesn't have to look like that. Our bodies as animals are meant to move, and that's a really important thing. We have moved away from that as in modern life. We've engineered a lot of natural movement out of our day. We drive everywhere. We're sitting most of the day. So just start to think about where you can add some natural movement into the day. Children could be outside playing. Maybe it's dancing. Maybe it's walking. Maybe it's a family walk after dinner. I used to love to go kite flying with my children at night. In the evenings after dinner, we would go for a little walk, go to the park and fly kites. It was great because you're kind of winding down before bed, but you're getting some movement out before the bedtime. So something about spending time outside, just 10 minutes can make a big difference. Maybe a walk out to dinner, you take a walk around the block, dancing in the kitchen. So you don't need to turn movement into one another chore or another formal activity. Just try to think about what kind of natural movement you can start to incorporate or add back into the day. And spending time outside is another important thing. As Americans, we spend about 90% of our time indoors. And we, as animals, we're meant to respond to the natural rhythms of nature, the natural sounds of nature. And so the more we can do with that, that actually is helpful for stress. It improves our metabolic health on many levels. It can improve our gut health. It improves our sleep. So that time outdoors is really important. Even a few minutes in the park, even if you're in an urban environment, if you're just standing outside, looking at the sky, looking at the horizon, looking at the sun, feeling the air on your skin, all of these things are beneficial. Just those few moments can make a big difference. And the last one is stress. Stress, I can't stress enough how important it is. Your child may be carrying more stress than you realize. Modern life is very stressful for children. Part of the reason is we're spending so much time indoors. A lot of the reason is this technology that we're on all the time. And, having a chronic disease can be stressful. Life, the pace of life can be stressful. So think about how it affects the body. Stress again directly affects our ability to sleep. It affects our energy levels. It affects our mood. It also can affect our metabolism. It can worsen insulin sensitivity and insulin resistance. So it's another huge thing. Our body, if it senses that we're in survival mode all the time, it acts like it's in survival mode all the time. Elevates our blood pressure, releases glucose into the blood. So it's a chronic level of activation. So how can we break that cycle? And simple things like, again, getting outside, a hug, a moment where you're just being present and not on technology and just listening and engaging. Listening can be a really powerful thing. Sharing and mirroring emotion is a positive thing. deep breathing, a really positive thing. I used to teach that to my children. This box breathing is a great way to immediately lower stress. It stimulates the vagus nerve. A good deep breath, 5 good deep breaths are a great way to break that pattern. And an important thing to note is that stress is not a personal failure. It is, again, we are meant to respond to nature. We're not meant to respond to technology all the time or be constantly plugged in. So recognizing that and, finding a way to address it. You're not going to create a whole stress-free home at one time, but I do like to think of home as a sanctuary. So all of these things, putting these things into place, protecting your bedtime, creating an environment. I say sanctuary because you want to make it so that you remove as much friction as possible. So when you move into the house, that you feel that sense of relief. You're not going to be constantly fighting yourself against snacks that maybe aren't nourishing, or bedtime that's stressful, or technology that's constantly throwing information at us. So try to think about it. I like to look at the home as a sanctuary. So hopefully this gave you some great things. I told you I would tell you where to begin. So the best thing is, don't start with something you think that you should do. The best thing is to start where you feel the most friction in your life. That may be either the easiest step that you can take or the place that you think would have the most benefit. So if you have a very frantic bedtime, maybe setting up that bedtime routine, that wind down can be something. If you feel that the snacks are a point of friction, starting to maybe put out a bowl of fruit so that people have in the house have a choice that's eats front and center and easy to do. If it's not moving enough and you think you could benefit some more time outside, think about planning a little family walk after dinner or something like that. So just start to think about where you can make the next step. And that's really the key, is making the step that makes the most sense for you and something that you're going to be able to repeat consistently. Now, just a note, consistent doesn't mean perfectly. We all have ups and downs. So recognizing that, acknowledging it, and just thinking I'll do better next time is a key. So consistency compounds over time, and then you can start to add in more things. You don't have to fix everything at once. You can fix what you can right now. And the key again is just taking back that power, having agency so that you have control over your path. If you want help putting this into practice, I encourage you to join me inside the Joyful Medicine Collective on School. This is where I help you understand, put all these pieces together, understand what's happening, what the connection between lifestyle and what's happening, and then taking some positive steps in the right direction without feeling more pressure. The goal is to embrace embrace it in a positive fashion without judgment or restriction. If you're ready, again, I would love to help you do it. And if, as a gift, when you join the community, you get my Joyful Fiber Guide, which is inside to help you take that first step. So join me inside of school. Make sure you share it with anybody that get benefit, and subscribe so that you don't miss any future videos. I will be going over each step, how to incorporate each one of these steps in your life and make it doable and practical. Thank you for watching.